Hi, I'm Mark. This is Three Bridges. Welcome back. So this will be sort of mid-March, I think, by the time I get this one out. I've recorded this one several times and keep chopping and changing, partly because I've been chopping and changing some of the track plan and part of the layout up in the loft. So here you can see I'm cutting down various boards from the loft to make things narrower. It'll all get explained in the video. I suppose it's spring cleaning my track plan really. I felt I had too much going on for the space that I'd got, so cut various things out, and hopefully it will make sense to you, as it was more of a documented record to me of why I changed it in March, I suppose. If you liked and subscribed last time, thank you very much. Do appreciate it. And I managed to get over the 400 number, so which was a nice achievement. Anyway, hopefully more to show you as we get towards the end of March as well. Finally got my Uxbridge station up into the loft. Started building this about a year ago. I think it was May I started on it, so coming up to a year. But yes, it's been a good day today, getting it up here, and it's got the incline section next to it. So I just need to sort out the slight height discrepancy. I sort of thought this might happen, so I've made the legs for the incline slightly longer. I can measure up now, and then I'll trim them back to fit. So I don't have levelling feet on these sections, as it didn't seem a lot of point. So I can start laying the track, and the other thing I need to do, obviously as well as reassemble the station, is think about the return loop that will happen to here. So, well, good morning. It's a few days later. As you can see, I've been testing trains on the incline section. At the moment, I am using the Scale Scenics incline wall kit, and I've got a lot to still make. I'm on the first one. I've got about half a metre still to go, and then I've got to make it 3 more times. Okay, today I'm trying to sort out the return loop. The last couple of days I'm trying to sort out the return loop that goes out of the end of Uxbridge on the lower level and then sort of comes back on itself. So I'm reusing some parts that I had from last October, where I sort of turned the children line into a roundy. So I basically have sections like this, so you get a single piece of track from side walls so nothing falls off. So I can reuse the straight, just extended it, and then so when I was doing it in October, it was like a 4th radius curve. Obviously, it's too big for the underground line, the space I've got, so I'm going for a 2nd radius curve. So here's my 2nd radius template. So I've just recut out of a sheet, series of sort of quarter sections. So I did that 4 times, I think, and then so effectively how it will look in the loft. That's the basic shape in the loft. So it will come out of Uxbridge, goes round and back in again. So all I've got to do, I've taken it up to the loft, just set it up, just test I've got the right angle. So I just need to put another joint cut through here so that these 2 parts will join together, and then they have a plate underneath, like the screws, just hold them. And then once I've done that, I will fit the rest of the side walls, just tacked all the way around. So it'll be in 3 sections. I can spray that black, and then I'll assemble it in the loft in the 3 sections. I can't physically, obviously, assemble it. I can't get it into the loft in this shape. You have to take it in sections. So that's what I'm going to work on this morning, and then I'll show you the final result in the loft. What I will do is I'll put the I'm using set track for the curved part, just because I've got some 2nd radius set track and it's just easier to fit, and then I'll use flexi track for the 2 parts. The other thing about the return loop, so obviously because this is going to be DCC, I will need to do can't remember the unit's called, like a current switcher, so it flicks over. As effectively you'll get a short. So at this point here, I'll have the isolator fish plates, and then I'll have to get one of my two units to flick the current. But for the time being and testing it all out, I'll do it in DC, and I can sort that out later. Spring, I suppose maybe the best way to describe this is some spring cleaning of my track plan. So a couple of things sort of popped up early in the month, having watched other YouTube channels, mainly a couple of big American large ones, so the Kansas and Western, and Peter's Sydney build. I sort of realised I've got too much track going on towards the back of the scene. So I had 4 tracks getting up to the next deck, and then another 2. And really, at any one time, I'm probably only going to run 1 train up and down it. I don't need 4 tracks, so I just need an up and a down. So the back incline board is out. I'm going to split it down, simplify it back to 2 tracks. So that's the first one. And it will give me a little bit more space behind Wendover to do a little bit more of the scenics that I'd originally planned to do when I sort of thought about it 2 years ago. And also Amersham, I've not been happy about the way the incline sits above Amersham and sort of casts a shadow over everything. So again, I think that'll give me a bit more natural height above the buildings. So as I was explaining earlier, I've sort of narrowed down the incline at the back. So this is where you go up from first deck to second deck. So it's just wide enough now for 2 tracks, and it's made it much better over Amersham. Right, we're back in the garage. Hopefully, if I film this, it'll make sense. So, if you watched a couple of episodes back, I'm making the assumption anybody watching this has watched a couple of the previous ones. So this is where I've got the end wall up in the loft. Got my various lines. So my East Coast, West Coast line came around here, and as I explained, I've trimmed the board down. So now I've only got 2 tracks. So this originally had 4 tracks, and it's just rammed with track and nothing else. So I was sort of limiting any scenics at the back. So I've just now got 2 tracks, an up and a down, in my combined East Coast West Coast line. So I've got to cut a section out here, and that will go up into the loft. That's on a slightly raised section, so you'll see that. That then leaves the rest of the board, which is basically going to be the Chiltern line coming out of Harrow on the Hill, which sits either side of an Uxbridge line here, which then goes off to my Uxbridge station. And what I'm trying to understand at the moment is where this Uxbridge line would start and the height of it, so I can connect it to the station. So I'm going to move the first section, it's a simple bit, and then I can work out what I do with the remaining board for the combined Chiltern and Amersham underground lines, and then that'll leave me a section in the middle which will be the start of my Uxbridge line. And the plan is to get to the point where I have a fixed point of reference and height up in the loft for the Uxbridge line coming out, having gone underneath the other tracks, and then I can join up from there to the Uxbridge station inclines up in the loft, and that then should allow me to join Uxbridge and the incline, which at the moment isn't fixed. It's roughly where I want it to be, but I haven't. It all depends on how it joins into here. Let's get cutting wood. So I'm just going to jigsaw all this bit, it's just easier. So I've got this is the 4th radius curve for the East Coast West Coast line, so anything beyond this line will be greater than the 4th radius curve, so my large pendolinos will be fine. That's the back section mainly cut out, so I've just clamped it to table bench, and I've got an extra plank just to hold it in place so it didn't drop as I'm cutting. So I'm down to just this last bit of wood here, but everything's sort of holding its place and not being stressed. So that's the sort of L-shaped back East Coast West Coast line board cut out, so I can get that into the loft, and then I'll work on cutting down the remainder of the board for the Chiltern line and the Amersham lines and the Uxbridge line. Okay. So as you can see, I've cut the start of the Uxbridge line. This is where it starts to cut out. It effectively goes underneath the other board, inclines down. So what I can do is, I don't need to worry about where the tracks are going to go on here. I'll sort all that out up in the loft, so I'll have basically the two underground lines coming from Amersham. So one will come this side, the other one comes this side, and then obviously I've got two Chiltern lines. So one's going to come across here as a roof strut through here, so I'll cut out another section that will just fill in that. If I can sort that out, take some measurements up in the loft. So the next thing I need to work out is basically the rest of the Uxbridge line. So basically a curved section that follows this third radius curve round to about here. So I'll measure up, do a section, and then I can just check the length from the wall to where I want it to be in the loft, and that should give me all the parts I need to basically just take this all up to the loft and start roughly putting it in position with the heights that I know I've got for the raised sections. Okay, so to get the underground line through, I basically just overlaid the section where it starts the curve, so put it over the other board and then basically drawn through at the same sort of radius of curvature. So this is going to be a section, so I'll cut this out and hopefully that should fit underneath. And at the far end of the loft I've got the back section in for the East West Coast lines up, so that sort of sits there, and that'll again only have two tracks. There's more space for scenics. The board in front is obviously the Chiltern and the underground lines, and then this is where the Uxbridge line sort of cuts underneath the board. So at the moment I'm just working on cutting through the subframe so that the baseboard for the underground line will flow underneath.